Okay, guys, I am so excited to go ahead and dive into these discussion questions with you guys. I have kind of had to like hold back a little bit and not continue reading, even though this book is so good already and just interesting. And so I'm wanted to make sure that my brain is not going too far ahead and we're staying with the discussion questions now. But you know, if you are already reading ahead, kudos to you, way to go, good job. It means you obviously enjoy the book and you are being encouraged by it. And I hope all of us are feeling empowered and encouraged as we read this book. And so let's just go ahead and dive into the questions. I couldn't really think of anything that was just like absolutely, specific as to like what I've said recently. But my husband shared a funny story with me the other day, and he said that he was really proud of our older daughter. She's 6 years old. She was really helping out a lot, and he was just really impressed with, it seemed like she was really kind of just maturing and, helping out with her little brother, being kind to her siblings, just showing a servant's heart, in just a lot of areas. And he was just told me, he's like, I was really just kind of thinking like, Matt, wow, I'm just really proud of like how she's showing some more initiative and growing up a little bit. And he said, as he was like thinking that thought in his head, he sees her pants all the way down to her ankles, like 2 rooms away from the bathroom going. And she runs by and was like, I gotta go to the bathroom. And so he said that thought kind of just quickly, disappeared real quick. I mean, we're proud of her and where she's growing. But again, I was like, oh, no, she's still really young. It's still 6. Okay, question number 2. The youth exodus. I think a lot of us have heard a lot of things about this. And so, I knew, the gist of it, but it was, really good to read the statistics again. And so I was thinking about just like my own personal life and like, if I know of parents and all that kind of stuff. And I know of a lot of parents actually, mainly because I grew up going to a Christian school here in town. It was a small Christian school, and I went to youth, I went to kids church, I went to Sunday school, there was chapel at school, there was Bible class every day. And so and the majority of my classmates, there was about 22 of us that graduated, but majority of our classmates, we had been together since like kindergarten or like elementary ages. And so when we got to our senior year, it was, it was like everyone, high school just changed a lot of us, and there's a lot of things like even, I was going through a lot during that time. But I look back now and, trying to remember, and there's a couple of us that we talk about this, when we're together, and we're just kind of almost just like, it's disheartening, knowing that out of the 21 to 22 of us that graduated together, there's only 5 or 6 of us that I'm confident are pursuing, a relationship with God and are making, Jesus a priority in their life. So I did the math, and it's like right under 30% of my graduating class from a Christian school. No longer, like 30% of us are staying in the church and are involved. And, as far as like what I can see from social media and some of the relationships I have with them, but that's 70% of them are no longer involved or, are making it a priority. And again, I don't know all their personal lives, but just from what I'm able to see, there doesn't seem like there's a ton of fruits or that something's being pursued. The one that really kind of shocked me was that it said about 40% are leaving the church during elementary and middle school years. And I work with I used to be a kids director for like nursery through 5th grade. And so I worked with a lot of elementary kids and just like learning their mindset, seeing them on Sundays and Wednesdays. And, back when I was that young, it was like, it's just like, it was the cool thing to do. You went to church and, that kind of stuff. But now it's definitely like kids are just in this, even in elementary, they're just kind of like, what's the need for it? They just are not motivated to, go to church with their friends, and kids aren't motivated to invite their friends to church. And so, and I've even, there's a couple of kids that I talk to and they're like, oh, well, so-and-so was already just saying, like God doesn't exist and all of these kinds of things. And they're just, and these kids are elementary and they're already having to defend their faith in elementary against other elementary kids. Like I said, it just wasn't really a thing when I was in elementary. And it could be because I went to a Christian school, but at the same time, I would imagine it was probably the same at public school when we were in elementary too. There wasn't really the need to defend your faith in elementary. before I had kids, I just sort of had this like mindset of just like, well, everybody does it. I did it, and I turned out okay. But now that I have kids, I'm like, no, there is absolutely no reason why I need to assume and just be okay with being like, oh yeah, like my kids will hit that stage and they'll be okay because they're going to come back. Like, no, they absolutely do not have to. And God calls us to a much higher standard. There's nowhere in the Bible where it says, like, oh, and then you're going to have your rebellious time, but just, come back. And not that God's not going to forgive you, but that's not his standard. That's not his expectation for us. It's not for us to, have that in our process and in our life with him, and where we're just being willfully disobedient. So the one that probably is more with what that I tend to fall into now would be the, like they go to Sunday service, they, we volunteer, they see us volunteering, we go to Wednesday night church, she goes to a Christian school, all those kinds of things that where I just assume that like she's getting enough, my oldest one. And so then I, it's like, but I'm not being intentional like I should, because there's so many times where I'm like, it's late, no story, just go to bed, and all those kinds of things. And so that's one that I fall more into currently. Okay, so my daughter, I can't really think of like a super tough question that she has asked me recently. She did make a comparison the other day and said, oh, Mom, God's a lot like Genie. And immediately it was just kind of like I was just trying to like in my brain, I'm immediately going, how do I answer this? Like, because he's not. And I don't want her just having this mindset that God is just this like magical person with superpowers who just gives you the things that you want. And so God definitely, immediately when my kids ask me questions like this, I immediately just pray in my head, and I'm like, God, give me wisdom to answer this question. But we were able to, talk about just the different things. Very briefly, we talked about, a genie is enslaved to whoever their master is. They have to grant whatever 3 wishes. And a genie also doesn't discipline, if they see that something, even if the person asks for something that the genie may know is not good for them, he's going to go ahead and he's going to give it to them because that was their wish. And so we talked about how, God is not enslaved to anyone. God's the one in charge, that we are not the boss of God. And also just that, we also talked about how that God will say no to things. And that God will, when he sees that there is something that's not beneficial for us, that he will say no, and the answer may be no. Made for some really good discussion between she and I look forward to getting to have more of those kind of discussions and topics and questions with her. The resources seemed like there was so much. There was curriculums for like, actual schools or homeschools, there's family studies, there's picture books. There was, videos, there's so many different options, but I know for me, we're going to look more into the picture books, because picture books are just such an amazing way to bring up a topic, to educate them on something. Like we have books on, just different attributes and characteristics about God that are just super, just that puts God in just another, visual form, or like some sort of metaphoric kind of way that is, I think, always really helpful. To just giving them a bigger view and grasp of just like who God is. Other than that, guys, I hope you guys are just enjoying the book. I can't wait to go ahead and jump into chapter 2. Don't feel like you have to have this like well-polished video or anything like that. I mean, you can just hold your phone and just, say it. There's no pressure. Nothing needs to be super nice. I am putting just a little bit more effort into mine only because I'm starting the discussion. Or if you want to just text, and just put it in the comment, or, whatever you want to do, but, do your best to try to watch and read and comment to other moms, whatever, maybe that was a good point that they brought up. So anyway, I'll let you guys go, and I cannot wait to hear what your guys' thoughts were on chapter 1.